he says, that's why I'm here. I'm building a euthanasia machine.
Oh, wow.
We just walked into this, okay, knocking on doors. This is
Yeah.
what happens when you're out praying and walking.
Sure.
And he starts going through the whole thing, and I look over, here is a half cutaway of a thing that looks like the Jetson spaceship, right, with the bubble on top. And he's explaining, he says, yeah, you lift the lid, you get in, you're listening to music, and you have buttons right here, and when you're ready to die, you hit this one.
Wow.
And a gas comes in, and you fall asleep and die, you don't even know it, and that becomes your sarcophagus.
Welcome to Reaching the Rest podcast, episode 7. This podcast was inspired by a desire to connect on a deeper level with global workers around the world, to get to know those with boots on the ground that have dedicated their lives to fulfilling the Great Commission, and to hear their stories. My name is Amy Clausen, and I'm the missions director at Bethel's Rock Church in Minnesota. In today's episode, we have the honor of speaking with Kent Linneweh, who worked and lived and ministered in the Netherlands for almost 20 years, and now is back stateside working to coach and train missionaries going over to Europe. Hi, Kent. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi. Yeah, great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Kent, can we just start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself, kind of a short synopsis of what the 20 years in the Netherlands looked like and what you're doing now?
Well, I was born and raised in Missouri, and met my wife in Columbia, where the University of Missouri was. I was a rock musician and drove a Cadillac hearse for my car and had hair down to my waist and all that stuff. Didn't know Jesus, of course, at that point in my life. Met my wife. She was going to Stevens College there. And for some reason, she was attracted to me, which is still beyond my understanding. Maybe when I get to heaven, I'll know the secret to that. But we got married, and she, to make a long story short, as in marriages, as we often go through turmoils and things, I left her for another woman. This is all pre-Jesus. So for those of you out there that are willing right now to throw tomatoes at me, it was pre-Jesus. and she, her best friend from New York, my wife is from Niagara Falls, and her best friend she grew up with down the street, who was Armenian, had become a believer. And that same week I left my wife, she moved to Kansas City, where we were, and led her to the Lord.
Wow.
And she began praying for me for 7 years. And after, I know, I'm German, which is mostly skull and little brain. Okay. And so she prayed for me 7 years. And after a year and a half of that cycle, we were remarried. I didn't understand why, but it was the power of prayer.
Yeah.
And then at the end of 7 years, I gave my life to the Lord. There's a whole story with that, which would be a whole podcast. Okay. I gave my life to the Lord and began going to church with her and that sort of thing. And then they said, oh, you play guitar and can sing. Why don't you help in the youth ministry? And I wasn't smart enough to know that was like, no one wants to work in youth ministry, right? And so, because it's such a pain in the rear. So working with teenagers, especially junior hires. And so we began that, and youth pastors kept leaving. And finally, the senior pastor, who I had known for quite a while and who had hired me, said, why don't you, was going to hire me. He said, why don't you do it? And I fasted for 5 days and couldn't understand why God could use me to do that. I mean, I didn't go to Bible college or anything. I just had a hunger for more of the Lord. And the Lord showed me I'm supposed to do it. And I kind of said, okay, and fell into that. And we began taking mission trips with our kids all over the world. And we would take like 40 kids to Russia.
Wow.
In Cambodia, we had a large youth group. The Lord blessed us with that. And that's kind of got in our blood. And next thing we knew, we came back from Russia. We applied for a mission status, and they said, oh, that's good, but you're too old. And I'm like, Wait a minute. I'm a youth pastor. What part of old is that? You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
this. I'm really, you're just dumbfounded. And at the time, they had kind of that criteria because I
Mm.
was like 45 or 47 at the time. And I thought, wow, okay, I'm too old. And so we went back and did youth ministry 5 more years. And a
Mm.
friend of ours in missions said, why don't you go back? They've changed their philosophy. So we went back and literally sat in front of them and said, here's what we look like and here's the pills we take. I'm really, and that's not a joke. And and they looked at us and said, "Well, we've got people on the field worse off than you. Go for it." And I'm like, "Is that a yes or is that an insult? I don't know. You tell me." And so that's how we got started. And we wanted to go to the Celtic cultures
Mm.
because I'm a big fan of just Celtic music and
Mm.
things, and had been to Ireland with a mission trip. And they said, no, that's not available.
Mm.
And, no, 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 no. And I said, well, where do you want us to go? And they said, how about Amsterdam?
Mm.
And we said, my wife, whose family immigrated from Amsterdam,
Mm.
and
Wow.
was Jewish
Mm.
back in the day, she lit up. And I'm
Yeah.
still sucking my thumb because I wanted to go to a Celtic culture.
Yeah.
And they said, maybe you can handle it. We read your bio. We know all about your dirt. Maybe you can handle it. Because Amsterdam's reputation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Prostitution, drugs, that whole liberal thing going
Yeah.
on. And so we went. And that's
Mm.
how that got started.
Yeah. Wow.
So there
So,
you go. That's a long,
yeah,
short story.
absolutely. So, I mean, I would assume being, starting off in that place and in that culture that you probably have quite a few stories over the 20 years that you lived there. So, can you share with us kind of one of your favorite or wildest, or this one of the stories that just really comes to mind when like you want to try to convey what living and ministering in Amsterdam looked like?
Yeah, it's always an adventure there. You have to understand the Dutch culture. We love the Dutch people,
Mm.
and I've got a little Dutch, mostly German. Like I mentioned, my wife has the Dutch Jewish heritage,
Okay.
which is really rich,
Yeah.
especially with the wars and things in the past. But um, so the people there are very opinionated, right? And they're very bold with their opinion. And
Mm.
in the U.S., we would think these are fighting words.
Sure.
But they're just like, no, I just don't like your shoes. It doesn't mean I don't like you, but your shoes are ugly. That's what they. But yeah, it'd be crazy like that.
Mm.
But for instance, I went in a butcher store there, and there, one of the things we loved about the culture there, they still have the corner butcher and the
Yeah.
and the baker and the poultry guy and the
Hmm.
fish guy. Well, it's called slager, and you have to be able to spit a little bit. Slager, right? So the slager winkel, which means shop, I went in,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to my best to speak Dutch, and I couldn't remember the word for turkey, and which, by the way, is kalkoen in Dutch. And I'm standing there, and the lady at the counter, they're all dressed in white, very proper. And there's the butcher in the back. By the way, the Dutch are the tallest people in the world. The guy's
Mm.
probably 6'6", whatever, you know. And he's meat cleavering back there, looking down. And I say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't remember because they all speak English better than we do. I said, I can't remember the Dutch word for turkey. And without missing a beat, the butcher goes, Bush. And this was back when George Bush was president.
Oh no.
Get it?
Yeah.
He didn't even look up, didn't even give me the privilege of looking up. I'm
Oh
like,
man.
really? I didn't ask you. But that's typical Dutch,
Sure.
But as far as being bold,
Mm.
but um, the culture there is can be quite liberal.
Mm.
Some of that's good, mostly not.
Mm.
But whenever we would plant churches, we were in 4 or 5 cities doing that.
Mm.
Okay, around the country, which
Sure.
isn't that big, smaller than Minnesota
Mm.
probably. And as was our custom when we'd start a church, whoever would go with me, we'd go out and start walking the streets and praying
Mm.
and just trying to get a feel for the people and the
Yeah.
neighborhood, just the climate, the spiritual climate. And we were trying to find a place to rent to start a church,
Mm.
just a small room wherever. And there, that's really hard because they don't want to rent to churches.
Mm.
And so my friend Frank, who was a big, tall Dutch guy, I said, we had been out walking, and I said, hey, before we go home, let's go over to this area. I've read about this kind of artsy area, and I read that
Mm.
there's places for rent. And we went and we started walking around there, and they had a giant, 3D printer in one big building. It's this kind of atmosphere.
Mm.
And we started knocking on doors in the corridors of this kind of, this area
Mm.
that had all these different startups and things. And finally, someone answered the door and invited us in. And Frank, my Dutch friend, starts to, they're gargling together and talking. And so, and I'm doing what I do, which is kind of being nosy and looking around. And I see this giant poster behind me in this small room. And the room's no bigger than my kitchen, right? But I see this poster and it says Sarco. Now, if you're like me, my mind immediately goes to sarcophagus. I don't know why, but that's what I think.
Sure.
So I it's like sarcophagus. And so when they stopped talking, they have to take a breath. I said, "Oh," I said, "What is that? Does that mean sarcophagus?" And the Dutch guy who was in there by himself looked at me and goes, "How'd you know?"
Oh.
I said, "Well, I don't know. It just kind of rhymes. Sarcophagus." He goes, "Yeah, that's what it is." He says, He says, "That's why I'm here. I'm building a euthanasia machine."
Oh, wow.
We just walked into this, okay, knocking on doors. This is
Yeah.
what happens when you're out praying and walking.
Sure.
And he starts going through the whole thing, and I look over. Here is a half cutaway of a thing that looks like the Jetson spaceship, right, with the bubble on top. And
Mm-hmm.
he's explaining. He says, "Yeah, you lift the lid, you get in, you're listening to music, and you have buttons right here. And when you're ready to die, you hit this one.
Wow.
And a gas comes in, and you fall asleep and die. You don't even know it, and that becomes your sarcophagus.
Hmm.
Get it? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right." And, and he goes, "Yeah, we get a lot of death threats from churches and things." And so I hand him our card, which has Meeting Place International Church on it. He kind of takes 2 steps back, and I said, "No, we understand. We get it. It's a big topic right now, universally." And then the guy loosened up, started talking about his family and
Mm.
things, and turned it to a ministry moment.
Hmm.
But that just this is the kind of stuff you just walk into
Yeah.
in places like in the Netherlands.
Hmm.
So there's another little story for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So what ended up happening with that? I mean, did you end up connecting with him after that? Did you end up renting the space?
We didn't rent a space. No, we kind of figured out the Lord just had us there for him.
Sure.
But and that's what happens. Honestly, when we talk about missions,
Mm.
evangelism, all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
if we just be who we are, let God
Mm.
use us where we are,
Yeah.
and be willing to be molded to walk a certain direction,
Mm.
even when it doesn't appear likely,
Mm-hmm.
then God tends to use us in
Yeah.
small ways. And in this situation, this wasn't, we don't have a big glory report like, yeah, he fell down on his knees and cried and wept. No, we didn't have any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But he saw us as a church that cared about him
Yeah.
and not about his machine,
Right.
even though he'd been commissioned by a country in a company in Australia to do that.
Hmm.
So he saw that we cared about him and his family and what
Right.
he was going through at that moment, because it was an extenuated conversation that involved much more than that.
Sure.
So, we got to plant the seed. He saw that
Mm-hmm.
we were a church that cared
Yeah.
in the middle of what we shouldn't care about.
Right.
And because he's more important than his machine.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we left it.
Mm-hmm.
And no, we never heard from him again.
Yeah.
That's just another little, this stuff happened all the time.
Hmm.
And it's simply because we were there
Right.
and we were watching for
Mm-hmm.
opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
which to me is missions.
Right.
Because, you've heard it said so many times, we're all missionaries. We're
Mm.
believers.
Mm.
We should all be missionaries, willing to share the hope that we have, as the Bible
Mm-hmm.
says, with
Mm-hmm.
all. And you just need to be instant, in season, out of season, ready to share
Yeah.
when the opportunity is there, because people need to hear, and opportunities are in front of us daily, but we
Mm-hmm.
disregard them most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, how did ministry when you went overseas? How was that similar? And then how was it different to what you were doing kind of through all the different stages of youth ministry that you'd been doing prior?
Wasn't that different?
Mm.
I mean, you learn a culture as best you can, and we as Americans, we're quite sheltered people.
Mm.
We really are. And when you're the thing about the Netherlands specifically, and Europe in general, but the Netherlands even more so than most countries in Europe, it's such a melting pot of cultures.
Mm.
Everyone is there.
Yeah.
And one of the things when we would travel and itinerate and speak in churches is to remind people that, you can reach everyone from one doorstep
Mm.
in it's called the Netherlands. I
Mm.
can reach Turks, I can reach Moroccans, I
Mm.
can reach Libyans, I can reach, yes, you know, uh, people from Belgium, Germany, and the Netherlands. They're there, but
Yeah.
all these other people are there from the
Mm.
Congo, from Kenya, from Madagascar. You just go on and
Yeah.
on, and so you're really reaching people from every culture, and you begin to understand there's a basic need that follows through all humanity,
Mm.
and that's the need for Christ.
Yeah.
The rest of it's baggage. The rest
Mm.
of it's like, yeah, I can look a certain way. Yes, I was raised a certain way. Yes, all this.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes down to it, there's a common thread in all people.
Mm-hmm.
And as missionaries, our goal is to be able to read what that thread is.
Yeah.
I mean, amidst all the baggage, you're kind of
Mm-hmm.
pulling apart all the strings that hide it,
Mm-hmm.
but then you focus on what's important in those people's lives.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to the Lord, He gives you the things to say for that person at that moment, for
Mm-hmm.
that period of time, that He can use to really penetrate their heart. Whether it be a seed that or you're watering someone else's seed, it doesn't matter. It's
Mm-hmm.
all part of the process. Like I shared earlier, my wife prayed for me 7 years. I had
Yeah.
32 years to know Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and all people are savable.
Yeah.
God doesn't make people unsavable,
Right.
right? And so we have to look through our filters. Like when I see people wearing burqas, oh,
Mm-hmm.
they're savable.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. If I see a drug person over here, they're savable.
Mm-hmm.
I see a beggar, they're savable. I see a rich Dutch guy, he's still
Yeah.
savable,
Yeah.
right? It's all part of the whole thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so, um, yeah, I think the culture, we love the Dutch culture, all of its idiosyncrasies, but all the other cultures that are there.
Mm-hmm.
We started a church in Maastricht in Limburg in the south of the Netherlands. And we started with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a team of 30 people. We didn't have a $500,000. We
Yeah.
just began walking and talking
Hmm.
and meeting people and saying, come
Mm-hmm.
see,
Yeah.
like the woman at the well in the Gospels, come see. And before we knew it, we started counting because we didn't plan to count, but wait a minute, there's over 70 nations here.
Wow.
70 nations coming to our little church plant.
Yeah.
70 nations of people.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute, we can reach the whole world
Mm-hmm.
right here. Because that Moroccan, I can't go to Morocco and speak on the streets. They would
Mm-hmm.
kill me.
Hmm.
I had a missionary say to me once about Morocco, he said, you better hope the police get to you first
Mm.
because they will kill you in the name of Allah.
Hmm.
But a Moroccan in the Netherlands can listen,
Sure.
can respond,
Yeah.
and then reach his own people better
Right.
than I can.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think of it that way,
Yeah.
Europe, there's a mystique about Europe. It goes both ways.
Mm.
Oh, we all want to go there for vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I get it. Lifestyle of rich and famous. But what about the lostness of Europe?
Sure.
What about the opportunity that's right there at our doorstep
Yeah.
to reach the whole world from one place? And that's what we try to educate people that think otherwise, that this is a mission field. Africa sends missionaries to you.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Right.
Right? So it's so if you're listening out there and you feel a call to missions, try Europe, okay? Try Europe, because there's a big need there and it's avoided. Yeah.
So you've shared a little bit kind of about your backstory and alluded to your testimony and just your experience, and just the fact that, like you said, for 32 years you didn't have a relationship with God.
No.
And so during the time, especially that you were in the field, but even just ministry in general, while you were a youth pastor, other things, how have you kind of seen God using those things to either prepare you or equip you or enable you to connect with people in certain ways, not necessarily despite of, but kind of because of the things that, he brought you through and brought you out of?
Yeah, and I would never suggest to go my route. I would never be an advocate for drugs, and I mean, just because you play guitar and loud music and your hearing's half gone because of it, doesn't mean you're a terrible person.
Yeah.
But I always look at people when we speak in churches, say, "Hey, if God can use me, what's your excuse?" I mean,
Yeah.
come on. If you know where I came from and what I've been through, you would go, well, really? But I would say all those things rolled together. Number one, I like to laugh. I like to make people laugh. Keeping, let's don't make it a drudgery to be a believer, right?
Yeah.
And relate to people where they're at. And because I know from my own life, I shouldn't be here.
Sure.
I shouldn't have a relationship with Jesus. I shouldn't be forgiven. I don't deserve any of
Yeah.
that. But yet I have that. And I have to understand that everyone in their position and wherever they're at can have the same opportunity as me. God's no respecter of individuals. They're all the same to him. They're all important to him. So for me, I think playing guitar, loving to sing, being from that heritage, and yes, the drug, sex, rock and roll, all of that. When I see people, for me, I can't look down on them without looking at myself.
Yeah.
I have no right. So that's an advantage.
Sure.
Because I don't have to judge people prematurely. I put them in a little pigeonhole. I see them as an opportunity to share the love of Christ with rather than it's someone to avoid. My wife will tell me all the time, I can be walking down the street. If there's a drunk, he finds me. He finds me. He'll pick me out of a crowd. I'm serious. Because my wife says, because you listen to them. Because you'll talk with them. You won't avoid them. And I guess that's an attribute. I don't know. But I think also God sees when we're faithful with little things, he gives us more things.
Right.
And as we're consistent in how we treat other people and look at other people, God knows, hey, we're not going to turn them away. And he will bring more of that to you like that.
Yeah.
And that's just for whoever out there is listening. But so I think my history gives me the opportunity maybe to understand people a little better, not turn them off, and to be able to listen. Although I must say I don't listen as well as I should. I think we all fall into that to a degree. But my wife says you're too quick to give the remedy without understanding the symptoms. So, but yeah, all of that rolls into understanding people maybe a little better. And that's not to say if you haven't had the kind of experiences I've been through that you don't.
Right.
But I think God uses each of us uniquely according to our experiences.
Yeah.
And that gives us insight into others just like us, because we're not unique. Everyone's been heartbroken. Everyone's lost a loved one.
Yeah.
Everyone's been lost a job. Or,
Mm-hmm.
you can go on and on and on. So it's not unique.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to understand that if God can use us, He wants to use us to touch others like us.
Mm-hmm.
And we just need to be looking for that. So use your experiences, whether it be your defeats, your victories, doesn't matter. Use your experiences to relate to other people the best you can.
Yeah.
And to read into other people's lives and understand they're just like you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Doesn't matter if they're church people
Right.
carrying a Bible or there's someone smoking some weed walking down the street with a bottle in their hand. They're people,
Mm-hmm.
just in different places of their life and their journey.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So it sounds like kind of this relational, aspect. You alluded to that's kind of what you started doing as soon as you got overseas, and that eventually led to having a church with 70 different nations represented. But what happened in between? Kind of what was your model? Was it always the same? Because I believe that you had mentioned that you guys had started multiple churches while you were over there. So what did that look like? What was the timeline of that? How did you
Being a
collaborate
youth
people?
pastor in Missouri, and like I said, we came from a bigger church, which also drew resentment from the smaller churches in our area, our district. So when we started itinerating, I pretty much had to go to places like Minnesota and other places to raise our funds. Honestly, 37 states it took us to go to
Wow.
raise our support. I know. So we've been a lot of places, but being a youth pastor, when we always wanted to start a master's commission. Are you familiar with that?
Mm-hmm.
Which is an intense discipleship program for people that they give up a year of their life and they live there and do everything. We wanted to do that, but our pastor in Missouri didn't have vision for it. So when we got to the Netherlands, we go, hey, let's start a master's commission. The young people here are really kind of flaking out. So let's see if we can't give them some direction.
Yeah.
So we started a master's commission in North Amsterdam. And that was good, but we start things to give it away because we don't know how much time we have and if we're going to be there forever.
Right.
Because now, I'm now 54 and in Amsterdam, right? It's not like now I'm not 45, 47 and too old to be a missionary to go back to that story. And so we started it and then gave it away to the pastor of the church there. And that's great. And then a friend was starting a home church, a missionary down in Leiden. We went down and they find out you play guitar and can try to sing. And so there you go. So now you're the worship person, right? So we did that for a while, but we're just attending and helping. And doing the worship, that's like breathing. And so we did that. And then another missionary moved there from Belgium and said, hey, we're starting a church in Leiden, which is like the Hollywood of the Netherlands, media, right? And the influence that has. So we went there and there again, did the worship, started a worship team and all that, and got the church going with them, and then left that. And then once you have other people take your place, why not go do something else that you can do differently, right? And so that's when they said, if you will go to Maastricht, we talked to the VPA. It's a nice Dutch elongated word they glue together. It's the Verenigde and the I can't even say it. It's Verenigde Pinksteren. Yeah. Anyway, it goes on. It's like this long. Okay. But anyway, it's the Dutch Assemblies of God.
Okay.
And they said, well, if you would go to Maastricht and Limburg, no one ever goes there. We would be so happy. And we thought, well, we're here to serve you.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't know any better. We'll go. So we went down there, and a young man was with us who got saved in our youth group at 14, who came over as a missionary associate and was working with us. And we moved down there. and started the church. And that's the one where we saw over 70 nations coming. And hey, just a victory story from that.
Yeah.
The very kid that got saved at 14 in a youth group now is pastoring that church. And they
Wow.
just celebrated 15 years
That's
at the
awesome.
church. Of the church of being, and that's the thing. We start churches not because we need another notch in our badge,
Yeah.
but because we want to see it exist and keep existing to reach more people, right? And grow. So that's the purpose. So it's still going. And then we thought, okay, we had to come home and itinerate. Then we went to Rotterdam. So we've been all over to Rotterdam, and there was a Dutch man there that had a bioscope, which is Dutch for an old cinema that missed the bombings of the German Blitzkrieg during the war.
Wow.
On the outside of it, they have a fire line there where the city burned, and it's across the street. That's how close that was. And so he said, "Hey, if you will help us start an English service, that would really be a blessing to us." And they've got all the space, so we did that, started that. And then finally, we said to him, "You were raised in Australia. You speak English really in that cute way that everyone likes. You can do this yourself." And he goes, "Okay." So that freed us up to go to Harlem, which, if you know anything about history, the Dutch invented America. I don't know if you knew that, but New York was called New Amsterdam.
Oh, okay.
And then they traded it to the British and York, right? New York. And so Harlem, Brooklyn, the Bronx, those are all Dutch words. They're just spelled differently because we messed it up. Okay, but that's so we moved to Harlem, the home of Corrie ten Boom. Ten Boom, we say, but it's Boom. And so we moved there and started a church called Meeting Place International Church, and we turned it over to a family from South Africa. And it's going strong. It's going great. And so, that's just looking for opportunities, seeing what God sees in spite of the difficulties, in spite of all the possibilities of failure, and just say, it's God's thing.
Yeah.
I'm just his hands and feet. So that's his responsibility. I'll just do all I can.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the pattern that we did and laid out, and just starting things, turning them over and going somewhere new that God has called us to. And we start it again, turn it over to someone else and go and do it again.
Yeah.
So to us, we're not looking for a full-time position in a church. We're just looking for an opportunity to reach more people and let God raise up someone who can lead the church better than us anyway. Why not? We're missionaries. We're not pastoral. We're,
Yeah.
So you see the bigger need and see what God sees and let him kind of use you that way. And little ways, big ways, doesn't matter. It all figures into the whole sphere of things that God sees.
Right. Yeah. Looking back to all of those different things that you guys were able to be a part of, and really, it sounds like just because you were open and looking, as you said. But what would you say was the most unexpected thing that either you did or unexpected thing that you encountered during your time overseas?
Well, other than the sarcophagus thing that I mentioned earlier, which was kind of a shocker when you knock on a door. Oh, yeah, I'm making a euthanasia. Yeah, aren't we all? That's what we do in our kitchens when no one's looking, right? I don't know. But I would say, itinerating. I'm going to move to that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not familiar with that, if you're listening, itineration is what the term Assemblies of God uses for being out fundraising to raise enough money to go do what God's called you to do.
Yeah.
Because as soon as God gives us zero, we have to raise it all. We're private contractors, if you look at it that way. And I remember our last itineration, we were living in North Carolina. And I just gotten back from an event. I traveled, I think, to Arizona. And I didn't want to go, honestly. I just was fatigued. I was going to a missions convention, and that can be code for here's another churchy event, and to not to sound terrible about it, but it just seemed like another thing,
Sure.
like going to a social,
Yeah.
and so uh, and they wanted us to come, and it was a big non-denominational church in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I didn't want to go, but we went,
Mm.
and it was a big church, like maybe 3,000, I don't know. And they had a thing, I hated this, where you walk down the center aisle like you're getting married,
Mm.
okay, you and your wife. There's a guy with a camera in front of you and the tables, and they're putting you up on their big
Yeah.
screens all over the place, and you're trying not to sneeze or pick your nose. And you're walking down, and then faintly in the distance, we hear, "That's my pastor."
Hmm.
And then I'm like, that's goofy. I mean, I don't know what that was about, right?
Yeah.
That's for someone else.
Mm.
And so we do all that. And they had other missionaries doing it. It was a big event, right? And so we had a table out in the hall with some of our goodies on it. And all of a sudden, this gal comes running up to us. She goes, "Do you remember me? Do you remember me?" And we've lived in the Netherlands long enough to be blunt and honest. And I said, "No, I'm sorry." I mean, you don't want to say that, but
Yeah.
you got to be honest,
Yeah.
right? And she goes, "I'm Dua, I'm Dua," and then I'm like, she goes, "I'm Dua from Libya,"
Hmm.
and I'm like, "Say what?"
Hmm.
And she said, "Remember the last day at the church in Maastricht? You came up to me because there they do coffee afterwards and hang
Okay.
around for an hour or
Yeah.
two, which is I wish American churches did that because that's where ministry happens
Yeah.
right there."
Yeah.
And I remember meeting her and just going up because I knew she was new. I always did that as a pastor,
Mm.
and just asking her what she thought of the service. And I remember her saying, "Well, I don't understand.
Hmm.
I'm a Muslim. I'm from Libya. I don't understand." And it was our last service, and all
Hmm.
I could say was, "Will you just keep coming, Dua?
Yeah.
God will show Himself to
Yeah.
you." And we left, and we
Yeah.
didn't know what happened.
Right.
And here's a girl God sent from Libya to the Netherlands,
Yeah.
now in Fayetteville, North Carolina, on the day we just happened to be there,
Right.
who runs up and says, "Now I'm a believer."
Wow.
And if you've ever done anything like travel to 37 states to raise enough money to go do missions, you understand that you get down.
Mm.
There are times in your
Mm-hmm.
life where you just feel like something's wrong. It's
Yeah.
not working.
Yeah.
Did I miss God?
Mm.
But God would constantly, and this is an example, would send someone like that in our path to
Mm-hmm.
remind us that what
Yeah.
we did is worthwhile.
Yeah. That's good.
That here's a girl, because she told us, she goes, "I can't go home. My family will kill me
Hmm.
because I'm now a believer.
Mm-hmm.
They've disowned me."
Mm.
And now she was living with a Christian family in Fayetteville, North
Hmm.
Carolina. We just happened to be there that one day,
Yeah.
and God orchestrated that to remind us that what we were
Wow.
doing was worthwhile.
Right. Hmm.
So
That's
that
incredible.
sticks out to me as much
Yeah.
as anything.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing. Now, kind of changing gears a little bit, you had alluded to when we were kind of just chatting before we started filming about having a daughter. Do you have other kids? Is it just a daughter?
No, we have two daughters, only
Okay.
girls,
Okay.
and one's in LA, and then the other is a pastor up by you guys in
Yeah.
St. Paul.
Yeah. And were they on the field with you, or had they already kind of gone their own
No,
ways?
that's another story, but no, Olivia, our oldest, um, and this is, you remember when I mentioned that my wife's Armenian best
Mm-hmm.
friend moved from New York to Kansas City when I had left her?
Mm.
Well, she lied to my wife. My wife said, "Why are you coming?" "Well, I'm on vacation."
Mm.
But the Lord had told her to quit her job and move to Kansas City just
Wow.
cold. And she didn't know why.
Hmm.
And that was the very week I left my wife.
Wow.
And she's told my wife, now I know why the Lord sent me to you.
Right.
Why he told me to quit my job. She was like, what? You're not on vacation? No, I'm here for you.
Hmm.
And she's Armenian, right?
Yeah.
Now, we talk about tithing in the church and offerings. The first fruits, like the Bible says, the top 10%, the first fruits of our marriage, our oldest and firstborn, was the first missionary to Armenia. Is there a connection there?
Right.
This woman who's Armenian, who trusts God by faith to quit her job,
Yeah.
move halfway across the country to be with my wife, doesn't know that I'm leaving her, then understands why I'm here, leads her to the Lord. And now our firstborn is the first missionary from the Assemblies of God to that lady's country.
Wow.
How you can't put that together.
No.
I mean, that's you can't make that happen.
Right. Right.
That's a God thing.
Absolutely. And so when you guys were in the Netherlands, your girls were not with you, correct?
No. As a matter of fact, we both got into missions at the exact same date.
Really?
And they said that was a first too, which we didn't know. They said, yeah, this is the first time that parents and daughter and son-in-law all at the same exact day are going into mission. So that's what we did.
Yeah.
We initially wanted to go to Armenia because of my wife and her friend, right? But our daughter went with us to the third floor of the Assemblies of God, where the Shekinah glory is, evident, I guess. And they were just being nosy. So they wanted to go up and meet with us with one of the hierarchy, just to be nosy. And then afterwards, Olivia, with her big, beautiful gray eyes, looked at me and said, Dad, would you mind if we went to Armenia instead of you? And I said, okay, go for it. Go for it. That's cool. We'll go somewhere. And that's how we ended up in the Netherlands, actually.
Wow.
So she went to where you see the story, how it unfolded about our firstborn and the faithfulness of an Armenian lady to start the Christian dialogue in our whole family.
Wow.
And so it's more than giving your money. It's giving your time and your heart and your trust as well. And it paid off in that regard. And so they were there 8 years.
Okay.
And did a lot of great things, then moved to Estonia.
Okay.
And started a church there called Focus Church. And now are pastoring in the Twin Cities area.
Okay. Wow. And so you were in the Netherlands, your one daughter was in Armenia, and then the other daughter, what was she? Was she back in the States?
She's back in the States, went to school at the University of Chicago, and then ended up in Seattle, working for Expedia.
Okay.
And then moved to LA working for Expedia, and got married in the process of all this. Has no children, but has an 80-pound Malamute named Millie, which is, she's a sweet dog. She's got tons of hair, but that kind of thing. You gotta like hair. But yeah, that's where that is. Yeah. She's not involved in ministry.
Sure. So what was that like for you guys? You of course were then in a different kind of season of life from raising kids, but still, you and one daughter and another, you're all in different countries. What is that like?
Well, and the hardest part, because we were older, like I said, I was 54 when we started this whole missions journey, being overseas. Started when I was 52 in 2002. But we both, because we were older, we had now quite aging parents. Now, this is a dilemma that is really hard to balance emotionally and spiritually.
Yeah.
Because you want to be there. And my wife is the only child. So there you have that complexity. I wasn't, but my father had passed away long before, but my mother was around and, getting quite old, ended up losing both of her legs for vascular issues. So you're kind of dealing with, what's my responsibility? some guilt there
Sure.
sometimes. And Lord, what's more important? I mean, obviously family has to be important. And to be honest, if I had to do things over again, there were things when I was a youth minister that my family sacrificed for the name of ministry
Yeah.
that I would change.
Sure.
Okay, just a little confession there.
Mm.
But that was the hard part, is how do we deal? And we had the blessing of them all,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you're as a child, you're looking at your parents, go, okay, they're giving me their blessing, but do they really mean it?
Mm.
I mean, is that they're being polite because they don't want to hold us back,
Yeah.
right? And you're trying to weigh that. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and with Leslie's parents, she being the only child, that was the hardest thing,
Mm-hmm.
because when she would come back, and inevitably, when we would come back, it seemed like one of them would end up in the hospital.
Mm.
And then you're like, okay, I'm supposed to go back again in a
Yeah.
week. What do I do? Do I
Mm-hmm.
stay here longer? I mean, you're constantly dealing with that. Then when they get to the point that they're in assisted living or something, then that's another crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very hard impasse.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you really have to weigh things, and you try to do the best with it, but it's there's always in the back of your mind, am I doing the right thing?
Mm.
So those are probably some of the bigger, but that was because we weren't in our 20s,
Right.
and our parents weren't healthy in their early 50s.
Mm-hmm.
We were dealing with parents in their 80s,
Yeah.
right? It's a different thing,
Mm-hmm.
but that's something we had to navigate
Yeah.
and deal with.
Yeah, definitely. So we've spent a lot of our time kind of talking about the time that you were in the Netherlands, but now you guys are doing something different. You guys are more so kind of on the, mobilization and catalyzation training side of, as you mentioned before, getting more missionaries over to Europe because that need is so great.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, it's called Europe Onboarding, and we work strictly with new European
Mm.
missionaries. We don't deal with the rest of the world, just Europe,
Mm.
because that's our heart. And
Yeah.
so part of it is we try to be diplomats for that.
Mm.
We encourage people to go to Europe
Sure.
if they're not already involved in the pipeline. But the ones that are in the pipeline, we get connected with to mentor, to use
Mm.
that word, coach, whichever
Mm.
you pick one.
Yeah.
But basically, and we remind them, because we're not establishment people. I tell them, look, we're not the AG police. We're not here to rat on you. We're not bugging this thing. We're just here to encourage, because we've
Mm.
been there,
Yeah.
and we know if we can make it, you can make it. You just
Mm-hmm.
have to work hard. So part of what we do is suggest things they could be doing differently,
Mm.
praying with them,
Yeah.
and really getting into trying to get into their lives a bit, like
Mm.
what's going on with your family.
Sure.
Are your parents behind you,
Yeah.
if that's the case?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Because those things affect their ability to get overseas,
Mm.
and can really drain them spiritually in the
Mm-hmm.
process if they don't handle things well. So we try to look at the big picture with
Yeah.
them and help them, give them ideas, remind them that we're on their side, that
Mm-hmm.
we're here to see them go. And
Yeah.
praise the Lord. I mean, everyone, when we started this, we told them, we said, hey, they asked us if we would attempt to do it. And we said, well, maybe if it provides value, but
Mm-hmm.
if not, no.
Yeah.
If it works, great. If
Mm-hmm.
not, no. And
Right.
so they said, well, why don't you give it a shot? So we said, okay, we'll try it for a year and see if it
Mm.
works. And then we'll decide if we want to continue.
Yeah.
But it's been over a year, and everyone, we enjoy it because we've always worked with younger people. We
Mm-hmm.
see ourselves, even though we're not, we see ourselves as much younger. And as you are probably figuring, not that you're old, I'm not saying that,
Mm-hmm.
but as we see ourselves, as we think of
Sure.
ourselves, not as we actually are,
Yeah.
right? And so for us, we see ourselves, we're in our 20s or something,
Mm-hmm.
early 30s at most. And so still messing with youth. And so for us, it's like we see younger people that way.
Yeah.
And and we feel like we can connect pretty well. So we just try to encourage people to not give up, to be
Yeah.
persistent. Like I said with the doula thing a few minutes
Mhm.
ago,
Mhm.
there are things God will remind us of why He called us,
Yeah.
and that He's behind us. And if we are perseverant, we just
Mhm.
keep knocking, and not give up,
Yeah.
and be tenacious. That we're and do the work. Do
Mhm.
the work. Don't let God do it all. You do.
Mm.
God's called you, but you do the work,
Mm.
and God will help you with the work.
Mhm.
But you've got to do the work.
Yeah.
And so we get behind people like that, pray
Mhm.
with them, and meet with them maybe every 4 to 6 weeks, because we don't
Mm.
want to be oppressive,
Yeah.
but at the same time we don't want to be vacant,
Mm.
right? And so that's what we do now.
Yeah.
So it's worked out well, and actually it gives us a touch point of ministry
Mhm.
that's a little different than what we're used to, but
Yeah.
still vital,
Right.
because with the pandemic and now post pandemic, that's changed the thinking of
Mm.
people, and people get down easy.
Yeah.
They give up easier, I think, than
Mm.
they normally would. There's just a whole dynamic that's shifted there.
Mhm.
That paradigm has changed. And so, where people want to give up and say, I guess I can't get there. God didn't call me. Wait a minute.
Mm.
Who called you, your mama or God?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's get that straight. Okay. Because we all go through rough times. But if God called you, don't give up,
Mm. Yeah.
because He'll get you there if you don't
Right.
give up.
Right.
And we tell them about all our stories and
Mm.
our difficulties. And there
Mhm.
again, if we can do it, you can do it.
Mhm.
And, it's just an exchange thing. And so that's what we do now.
Yeah.
And it seems to be needed, and it seems to be worthwhile,
Yeah. That's good.
because Europe needs missionaries. If you're listening out there, maybe God's calling you to go to Europe.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, that is a perfect segue into kind of probably my last question for you. But what would you say to somebody who they're interested in missions? Obviously, there's something that is kind of getting at their heart, but they're just not sure if they're called. What would you say to them?
Well, keep asking,
Mm.
and don't dismiss it.
Yeah.
Remember the story in the Bible of Samuel, who thought
Hmm.
that he heard it. He didn't think it was God.
Yeah.
And finally, after 3 times, he said, "Hey, go back next time, and if you hear it again, say, 'God, is that you?'"
Hmm.
And sure enough, it was God.
Yeah.
And so I would say maybe you're waiting first, second, third time to hear, but God will
Hmm.
continue to confirm it. And if the calling doesn't go away, there's a
Hmm.
reason.
Hmm.
I mean, if it's passing like a bad meal, I mean, you know, indigestion goes away. If your feeling of calling goes away, then okay, it was just a feeling.
Mm.
But if it was a calling, God will continue to remind you.
Yeah.
But don't turn it off, and don't turn away from it.
Hmm.
Look for it and be listening like Samuel
Yeah.
to hear God's voice.
Yeah.
Continue to call you, and then respond. It's faith. Faith requires our response.
Hmm.
Faith by itself is just an idea,
Mm.
but faith walked out requires a response.
Hmm.
You have to put feet to your faith,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And that's my advice. Don't dismiss it. And sometimes the calling is not right away. The calling could
Mm.
be next year,
Sure.
could be when you're out of school, could
Hmm.
be 4 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road.
Hmm.
But if it persists, it's there for a reason,
Yeah.
and you need to pursue it at that point.
Hmm. Yeah, that's good. Well, thank you so much, Kent, for taking the time
Yeah.
with us to share about your ministry, your life on the missions field, what you're doing now, your testimony. And again, we're so honored to have the opportunity to partner with you and support the work that God is doing through you, and just look forward to continuing to read your updates and just see what God is just continuing to do through the legacy that you guys have left, and are continuing to lay, as the churches that you helped to establish are sustaining, as the people in your youth group that came to Christ kind of through that ministry, are on the mission field, and all of these different things. It's just so encouraging and challenging to hear all about that. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me and allowing me to speak and share. And also thanks to Bethel's Rock for having such a missions heart to even do this kind of podcast, as well as the prayerful and financial support that we've enjoyed from you guys over the years. Because honestly, without churches like Bethel's Rock and people that believe in the mission, this can't happen.
Sure.
None of this, all these stories you've heard, they wouldn't have existed apart from your help for people like myself to be there.
Yeah.